Wow, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. What a group. There was no way I was going to miss this. The plane was coming in. That plane was coming in. I said, "Are we okay?" to the pilot. He said, "I think so." I didn't like that answer. "I think we're okay, sir. I think we should be okay." I'm saying, "Should we turn back?" He said, "I wouldn't mind if we did." I said, "I don't have the courage to turn back from these people. Just land this sucker, would you please?" Little rough weather out there. Thank you very much, everybody. And it's a true honor to be here in this beautiful Nashville this is a great place, with the National Religious Broadcasters. What an important group. And they're giving you a hard time in Washington, but you won't have a hard time in about 11 months from now, I can tell you. You won't have a hard time. Let me begin by saying congratulations on 80 incredible years of spreading the great word of God. It's really great. What you do is very important. Let me thank the President and CEO of NRB, Troy Miller, Executive Vice President Linda Smith, NRB Chairman Jim Sanders. Oh, you got the whole group here tonight. This is power. This is power from above. General Counsel Michael Farris, Director of Public Policy Noel Heisinger, as well as Ambassador David Friedman. And David, where is David? Where is my David? I'm going to get you up here in a little while. I think we got to hear a little bit about what's going on over there. Former Congresswoman, a terrific person, Michelle Bachmann. Where's Michelle? Where is Michelle? Hi, Michelle. Hi. It's been a long time. Doing a great job. Heritage Foundation President, somebody else doing an unbelievable job. He's bringing it back to levels it's never seen. Dr. Kevin Roberts. Kevin, thank you, Kevin. Kevin, thank you, wherever you may be. Thank you, Kevin. Pastor Robert Jeffress, he's up there all the time, and he's always saying good things. A long time ago, when I just announced he was on Fox, of all places, and he said, no, he may not know the Bible as well as some. He may not know every passage. He may not know it actually so well at all, but he's the greatest leader, and he is a believer and a strong believer, and he's going to take us to places that we would never have been taken before, and he turned out to be right. He turned out to be right. So, Robert, thank you very much. Robert Jeffress, great guy. Pastor Jack Hibbs, thank you, Pastor. We got a lot of the big shots here tonight. And Pastors James Ward and Sharon Ward, thank you very much. A man who's treated me most of the times pretty good. And I like him, and he is a smart guy. Hugh Hewitt. Where are you, Hugh? Where are you? Thank you. Another man who's, I just think he's an incredible guy. He's a patriot. He loves his country. Sebastian Gorka. Those two guys are really amazing. And everybody at Salem Media Group, you've been incredible. You really are, and you're very popular. More popular than you would even know. And, of course, a very special thanks to all of the inspiring people in the audience today, the broadcasters and communicators, the brave independent Christian journalists, and they are brave, the missionaries who go to the world's most dangerous places, and I don't know how you do it. You're among the bravest people in the world, and you do a job that nobody could do but you. And the pastors, podcasters, producers, and patriots whose ministry lifts up the spirits of tens of millions of Americans. You do an incredible thing for humanity, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's incredible people. Thank you. We're going to save this country. It will be thanks to the men and women like you, like the people in this audience, and we are represented by the best, the people who make God's work your work, God's work your work. That's what you do, and I want to thank you all. Incredible job. Thank you very much. When this legendary organization was founded 8 decades ago, it was in another moment of crisis. We are in a crisis right now. We've got an incompetent president who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He will not lead us to the promised land, as the expression goes. 1944 was the year of D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, and General Douglas MacArthur's famous return to the Philippines. Please sit down. We'll be here for a little while. Thank you. We've got a lot of time. Our country was at war with the enemy and they wanted to extinguish our way of life forever. It was a very bad time, but here at home, Christians knew that victory depended not only on the force of American arms, but also on the faith in American hearts. And we've got to get more of that back in our country today. We really do. Have to get more of it back. Your institution was formed to give voice to an army of preachers and ministers and faith leaders who fought every day to strengthen America with the good news of the gospel and the love of Jesus Christ. Today we are in another struggle for survival of our nation. I believe it's the most dangerous point in the history of our country because of the power of the weaponry. It's no longer army tanks going back and forth, blasting each other out. It's nuclear weapons and other weapons that are just as devastating. And we need brilliant people to do the job. And if you don't have that, it's going to be a very bad time for the world. This time, the greatest threat is not from the outside of our country. I really believe this. It's from within. It's the people from within our country that are more dangerous than the people outside. We can handle China. We can handle Russia. We can handle all of them if you have a smart leader. But the inside people are very dangerous. They're very sick people, in my opinion, in many cases. They're sick. I'm here today because I know that to achieve victory in this fight, just like in the battles of the past, we still need the hand of our Lord and the grace of Almighty God. We have to have that. Our country is being destroyed by a radical left, corrupt political class that has gone communist, Marxist, and even fascist. I used to say we will never have a socialist state. And I was right. We passed over socialism. Socialism's a nice way by comparison to where we are. From Joe Biden on down, and I'm not sure that Biden knows what the hell's going on. I don't think he knows he's alive, actually. And I never used to say that until I got indicted. Then I said, okay, now I can say it like it is. They said, well, we'll never indict a popular American president. Don't forget, I got more votes. We got more votes, all of us together, than any president. Think of it. Than any president, sitting president in the history of our country. Got more votes than any, by far, by a lot. And lots of bad things happen, very bad. We can never let that happen again. They rigged the election, and look at the mess our country's in right now. Would have never happened, including inflation. Israel wouldn't have been attacked. Ukraine wouldn't have been attacked. China wouldn't be thinking about Taiwan, wouldn't even be thinking about it. There'd be no inflation. It was energy that caused it. We had inexpensive energy. We have more liquid gold under our feet, think of it, than any other country in the world, and we don't use it. We go to Venezuela to get their tar. It's so sad. It's so pathetic. From Joe Biden on down, they have thrown open our borders to an illegal alien invasion by the world's most sadistic criminals and savage gangs, while putting peaceful, pro-life citizens behind bars. We have a new category of crime. I said it last night for the first time. We did a show. Laura Ingraham, highest rating she's ever had. How about that? Don't we love that? What do I get out of it? I get nothing, so what difference does it make? What do they give me? Nothing. But there were a lot of people watching. But you just see what's happening. You see so many things happening that are just unthinkable. It's unthinkable that millions of people would be allowed into our country. It's unthinkable. Who would do this? They've unleashed mobs of foreign jihadists to praise Hamas in our streets. They're praising Hamas while they slander law-abiding Americans as domestic terrorists. You heard the J6 hostages. You saw the spirit that these people have, the spirit. You would think they wouldn't have any spirit left, but they have tremendous spirit. What's happened to them has probably, to that extent, never happened in our country before. They're weaponizing law enforcement to target parents, conservatives, and Catholics. more than anybody, Catholics. What's going on with Catholics? Do we have any Catholics in this audience? Raise your hand, please. I just want to see. Not too many, but I will tell you, how the hell do you vote for this person? They have gone after Catholics. That's probably why we don't have any in this audience. There are none left. But there's one sitting in first row, and he's a very important one, I will tell you. No, but how Catholics? I mean, they're being persecuted, Catholics. But evangelicals, and they're all on the list. For all Americans, but especially for Christians, nothing is more important than to defeat this wicked system and to return to fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. You have to return to the constitutional rule of law. We're not there. There's much work to be done, but there is no doubt where we have to begin. We have to begin, and we have to begin immediately. The restoration of law and justice in America begins with firing crooked Joe Biden on November 5th, 2024. If we don't fire him, our country, I believe, is doomed. I believe it's doomed. As you know, the left is trying to shame Christians. They try and shame us. I'm a very proud Christian, actually. I've been very busy fighting and, taking the bullets, taking the arrows. I'm taking them for you, and I'm so honored to take them. You have no idea. I'm being indicted for you, as I say. I'm being indicted over and over and over. I've been indicted more than Al Capone, the great gangster. Scarface. My parents are looking down. They said, "Do you believe this happened to me?" I never heard the word before, essentially. I never heard the word before. Think of it. I've been indicted more than some of the greatest criminals in the world for nothing. For nothing. If my plane flies over a blue state, that evening I get a subpoena to report to a federal grand jury. Al Capone would have dinner with somebody. If he didn't like the look on his face, he'd kill them. He never gets indicted. No. What they're doing is very dangerous for our country. You see it. You see the support I have. Look, this never happened before. When somebody goes through this kind of stuff, they immediately go to the microphone. They say, "I will be leaving office now. I will be home. I'm going home and love my family and cherish my family and fight for my name." And that's the last you ever see of this poor person. With me, I get indicted and my numbers go up. What the hell is going on? Because the people know it's a scam. They understand it. They know we're being scammed. True. It's so true. They want to silence you, demoralize you, and keep you out of politics. Stay the hell out of politics. If I wasn't running, and if I wasn't leading by a lot, you see the polls today, I'm up by 12 points and 14 over crooked Joe Biden. And in a national poll, I'm up by 91 points on I won't use the term because some people think it's a little bit nasty, but some people you don't like very much. Haley. I'm up 91 points. That's a lot. And in South Carolina, Nikki Haley is losing to me. It looks like she's going to lose by 25 or 30 points. That's a lot. She's governor, but people don't like her too much. And she's hurting the party. But I don't care. Let her run, because think of it, if she's not running, they're not talking about us. So maybe it's better if she runs a little bit. But she's not doing well, and we can't let it happen. We have to stick together as a party. We have enough of a fight on whether you call it the radical left or the communists or the fascists or whatever you want to call them. That's our fight, and we have to save our country. But Christians, they can't afford to sit on the sidelines in this fight. They have to really get out there. They have to do what they have to do, and they have to win. The corrupt persecution by this regime will not stop with me. Oh, it's not going to stop with me. I mean, they gave me a fine of $355 million for doing nothing wrong. This was a fine like never seen before. And the amazing thing, the people in this country, they understood it immediately. It's all a big hoax. If I wasn't running, I wouldn't have been sued. None of these indictments would happen. And if I wasn't, once I started winning, I said to my wife, I said, our great First Lady who sends her regards, she loves everybody in this room. But I said, when I saw these numbers where we're way ahead, I said, oh, this is going to be painful. I'm going to probably get another 12 indictments in the next week or two. Although they're backfiring, I know I heard in one case they were getting ready to do it and they got a call from Washington, don't do it, we're going to indict this guy into office. But they're bad people. The chains are already tightening around all of us. I mean, if you think about it, ultimately the radical left is coming after all of us because they know that our allegiance is not to them. Our allegiance is to our country, and our allegiance is to our Creator. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. How any Christian can vote for a Democrat, Christian or person of faith, how you can vote for a Democrat is crazy. It's crazy. They've got to stop. They've got to stop because it's hard. You know, we have to really go out on November 5th, and we have to get votes like nobody ever got before because they always cheat. We have some great safeguards, a lot of things. The last time, well, we won one that we weren't supposed to win. They went crazy, and they decided to do things that they shouldn't be doing. And we were somewhat unsuspecting, and they did something that really has set back our country tremendously. But we're going to get votes. I will tell you, we did phenomenally in 2016. We won. We did much better in 2020. We got millions and millions of more votes, and we got scammed. And the enthusiasm was probably the likes of which nobody's ever seen in an election in this country for both of them. The enthusiasm for this election coming up in November is far greater than it was in 2016 or 2020. Far greater. It's not even a contest. I've never seen anything like it. Even coming over here, everybody has a Trump sign. Trump, Trump, Trump. And, you know, unfortunately, we're still 9 months away, a little more than 9 months away. And the sad part is that the incompetence of this man and this administration can do tremendous damage in 9 months. And it's a long time, you know. 9 months sounds like it's short, and it, politically speaking, is pretty short. It's not a long period. But the damage they do is just overwhelming, what they're allowing to happen to our country. What they cannot stand is that, in the end, we do not answer to bureaucrats in Washington. We answer to God in heaven. We do. We answer to God in heaven. So today I come before you as a friend and an ally and a fellow believer to ask for your help and your support and your prayers for this country. We need your prayers, most importantly. And I make you a simple promise. In my first term, I fought for Christians harder than any president has ever done before. You know that. You know that. And I will fight even harder for Christians with 4 more years in the White House. We did things that the likes of which nobody has ever done for Christians in this country, and I'm very proud of that and honored by it. Just think of what, with God's help, we already achieved in our historic first term. Just a few of the things under my leadership and working with you and a lot of the great people in the room. Jack, thank you very much, by the way. You see you sitting there. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. Thank you very much. Great job. And so many others. Under my leadership, we did more to uphold religious freedom than any administration in history, and everybody agrees. So, Robert, I guess you were right, weren't you, huh? We fearlessly protected the conscience rights of doctors, nurses, teachers, and faith groups like the Little Sisters of the Poor. We fought very hard alongside of them, and we had some incredible results. I blocked the IRS from using the Johnson Amendment to interfere with pastors' freedom of speech. And Joe Biden is trying to take it back. He's trying to take it away. They used that. I'll never forget, I was in New York in Trump Tower. It was 2015. I had probably 45 pastors, some rabbis. But we had people of faith and teachers of faith and very people I want to hear from. And I said, I'd love to have your endorsement. And they looked a little bit like bewildered. Because I didn't know what the hell. I never ran for office before. Now I'm running for president and I'm leading. And I say, I want to have your endorsement. And they said, no, I don't. We just can't do that. I'm wondering, because they had come up 2 or 3 times. We got along great. We all agreed on just about everything. But when I said, I'd love to have your endorsement, the room went sort of silent. And I called one of them over and I said, what's wrong? I don't understand. Why wouldn't you endorse me? I mean, the person you're talking about, and you could go either way, whether it's Biden or Hillary Clinton. I don't use the word crooked, for I took that word away from her and I put it now on Biden. I call her now beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. But I said, why aren't they endorsing me? I'm so much better. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I am so much for what you are all about, and what you're about is the most important thing. They said, sir, we're not allowed to. We have a thing called the Johnson Amendment. I never heard of that. I said, what is it? Well, if we openly support somebody, politically, we could lose everything. They'll take away, we have a tax-exempt status. They'll take that away. Churches will be devastated, we'll be devastated. I said, I never knew that. This was Lyndon Johnson, very powerful president, actually, powerful guy. He knew how to get things done, and he had a problem with, I guess they say, a pastor in Houston or Dallas, big problem. And he did this. He put this horrible rule into effect, and it was a very strong rule. And I said, so, and we were on the 68th floor of Trump Tower, and we're looking down on Fifth Avenue. I said, so that means that any person down there has equal power to you people, and you're the people that everybody wants to listen to, but you're not allowed to back that up because you need some political strength. They said, essentially, that's right. We can't really do anything because we'll lose tax-exempt status and other things. And I said, that's too bad. I said, if I get in, we are going to totally void out the Johnson Amendment, and I was able to do that. We voided it out, and you were able to speak because you're the people that I want to hear from and that other people want to hear from, and you're not allowed to speak. And you should be allowed. If you see somebody that believes in Christianity, if you see somebody that loves evangelicals or Israel, which has become more and more prominent in your thoughts and your prayers, you should be able to vote and to promote the person that's backing the ideas that you love and cherish, and it's very important. So I thought it was the most ridiculous thing. Anyway, we got rid of it, and people took a much more active stance, and that's great. And we're going to do it again, and we're going to get it out now permanently. We were putting it in the tax, but we had tremendous bite back on that. But for 4 years, we went through a great period. You were able to speak. And we're going to make that on a permanent basis. You're going to be able to do it because you're the people we want to hear from, the pastors and the ministers and the rabbis. The people in this room are the people we want to hear from, and they have to have a political voice. You know, if you think about it, you have men, you have women, and you have religion. If you look at it, you have more than the men, you have more than the women. You have such power, but you weren't allowed to use that power. And you're now allowed to use it. I get in there, you're going to be using that power at a level that you've never used it before. It's going to bring back the churchgoer. I mean, you have to see. I don't like the charts when I see charts where they're going in the wrong direction. We don't like that. We're going to bring it back. And I really believe it's the biggest thing missing from this country. It's the biggest thing missing. We have to bring back our religion. We have to bring back Christianity in this country. Thank you. Thank you very much. I issued guidance making clear that the right of freedom to worship does not end at the door at a public school, and I supported school prayer, very important, school prayer, which we unfortunately had to force into some schools. It should be very easy. You would think it would be very easy, but it wasn't, but we did it. I was the first and only president to convene a meeting of the United Nations to end religious persecution worldwide. First time they've ever done it. They were not thrilled, but that was okay. They did it. I signed an executive order to install faith advisors in every federal department and agency so that your voice and the Christian worldview would be heard in the halls of power in Washington and all over the world. It was a very big deal. Very proud of it. Wasn't that easy to do, you know that. 4 years we totally transformed the federal bench, appointing nearly 300 federal judges to interpret the law and the Constitution as written, a record, 300. I withstood vicious attacks to pick and confirm 3 great Supreme Court justices. The great justices, great people. They're great people. Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. Nobody thought that was going to even be possible. We fought. This was not an easy thing to do. From my first day in office, I took historic action to protect the unborn, like nobody has ever done. Nobody has ever done it. Thank you. I reinstated and expanded the Mexico City policy. Ronald Reagan didn't do it. Nobody did it. Nobody did it like us, and was the first president ever to attend the March for Life rally in Washington, D.C. It was a great honor. And I was able to bring this issue for the first time in 54 years back to the states where everybody agrees on both sides. Everybody agrees that's where it should be, back in the states. It was so important. Everybody on both sides. And they are the radicals. Remember this. They try and paint a picture of disinformation, misinformation, almost the same, but actually not quite. But we won't go into that. But it's disinformation. And they try and paint a picture because they're willing to kill the unborn in the 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th months, and even after birth. I mean, even after birth. You remember the governor, that former governor of Virginia, that said the baby will be born and we will decide to kill the baby after birth. We will make a decision with the mother. This is the first time I heard that, but there is legislation in some states where you actually have the right to do that. So they're the radicals. You're not the radicals. We're not the radicals. They're the radicals. And you have to say that. Politicians have to say that. Because nobody believes that after a certain period of time, nobody believes that you should be doing this. It's like 97% agree. We also have to remember that we have to have people elected. So some things that you feel, and you have to go with your heart, you have to stay with that. You have to stay with your heart, but you have to get elected. You have to get people elected. But what a difference a president makes. You saw that during my term. What a difference a president makes. So big. Bigger than anything else. As I mentioned earlier, under crooked Joe Biden, pro-lifers are now being hunted down by the Biden regime as enemies of the state. Can you believe that? The same Biden DOJ that dropped charges against Antifa, where they kill people, where they destroy cities. Take a look at Portland. You can't even walk down the street. It's just, they don't even have storefronts anymore. They use 2x4s because if they put up a piece of glass to show their wares, it gets knocked out. Well, most of the stores are empty, so it doesn't matter. But take a look at what they did there. Take a look at what happened in Seattle, where they took over a big portion of the city. They literally took it. If I wasn't going to send in the troops, we were sending in the troops the next day. All of a sudden, they decided to leave. But the governor didn't want to do it. The governor didn't want to do it, and would have never done. They'd still be there if I didn't do what I did. You take a look at Minnesota, Minneapolis. You take a look at what they were doing with that. If I didn't send in the National Guard, and the governor didn't want it, and if I didn't send it, you wouldn't have that city anymore. Remember the CNN announcer saying, "This is a nonviolent protest," and behind him, the entire city was burning to the ground. Do you remember this? This is nonviolent in every way. I don't see a problem. And he also got hit on the knee with something, and he went down. And the city behind him was burning. I never saw anything like it. But they're fake news. What can I say? I think one of the terms, they say, you come up with good names. I said, maybe fake news was the best. They're fake news. You know, when I first started, fake news. When I first started, the press had a very high rating. People actually believe them. You know, you think you read something in the New York Times, it's true. It's usually the opposite. The Russia hoax, they kept it going. It was supposed to be a one-day deal. It was a way of explaining why Hillary Clinton lost election that a lot of people thought she was going to win. Most people, I guess, thought that. I didn't think it, because we'd go to rallies with 45,000 people, and she'd show up and they'd have 25 people show up. I said, it's true, why are we going to win? But we won that, and the news just went crazy. And it was supposed to be a one-day event, Russia, 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 and let's get on to running the country. But that went on for 2.5 years. And then they had the Mueller report, and it came in, no collusion. But I could have told them that on day one. And they would have known that on day one. They should have known it, because they had the laptop from hell, so they should have known it. That was, you have to say, that was truly the laptop from hell, wasn't it? Miranda Devine wrote a great book on it, and she was very nice. She credited me. She said, I got the name from Donald Trump. I saw him calling it the laptop from hell, and she named her book The Laptop from Hell. It was very, very successful. I didn't get anything out of it, though, Miranda. But it was a good book. It was. Can you imagine if they didn't? Can you imagine if he would have gone and picked up the laptop? David, it would have been a whole different country out there for them. But that is, and what they have is peanuts compared to what's on that thing. If that were from the other side, if that were a Republican instead of them, the things that are on that are unbelievable, unexplainable. The same Biden DOJ that dropped charges against Antifa has rounded up 6 pro-life activists right here in Tennessee, arresting them for a peaceful protest outside a clinic where they prayed, sang hymns, and were removed with great force. Last month, those protesters were convicted on outrageous charges and are now facing up to 11 years in prison. This is a communist state, just so you understand. This is the beginning of a communist state, whether it's me or any one of another 1,000 things that are going on. This is the only way they're going to be able to stay in office, because they're running a regime that's so incompetent. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Everything they do, high interest rates, the open borders. I don't think there's ever been anything so egregious that we've seen as these open borders, where these millions of people are allowed to just come into our country and invade this country. You saw that mountain? We built the wall, all of these hundreds of miles of wall. We ended it at that mountain. They said, nobody can go over that mountain. And we put a boom right into that wall. We figured we had, at least we had something done that was good. The people are pouring over. It's sort of known as Snake Mountain, State Kill, Snake. It's snakes, a lot of snakes. I think they're rattlesnakes. Between the rattlesnakes and the rough terrain and the steepness, they said nobody's coming over. The people are coming over by the thousands. It's crazy, and we let them come over. We let them do it. Our country can't withstand, no country can withstand what's happening to us. The cities are being inundated. They're being overrun. They're taking the parks from children. There are no more baseball fields, no more soccer fields, no more anything. It doesn't sound very serious. Soccer fields and baseball fields are very serious. Their way of life has changed, and they're being treated better than long-time American citizens, and they're being treated better than our soldiers, our veterans are being treated. They're staying in world-class hotels. The whole thing is crazy, what's happening in our country. Let's call these brave Americans what they really are, persecuted Christians. They're being persecuted. And let's call their imprisonment. They are being imprisoned by Joe Biden and his people, evil people. He's surrounded by very evil people. They are, I believe, just doing whatever they want to do. I don't believe they have any leadership at all. Joe Biden, because of his gross incompetence, is a threat to democracy, big threat to democracy. To reverse these monstrous abuses of power, the moment I win the election, I will appoint a special task force to rapidly review the cases of every political prisoner who has been unjustly victimized by the Biden regime. Never again will the federal government be used to target religious believers. They are targeting religious believers. What they did to all of you, a lot of ground was lost by religion during COVID, during the China virus. Let's be more accurate. It's called the China virus. We want to be accurate, have to be accurate, or you'll get criticized. You'll get criticized by the fake news. But Americans of faith are not a threat to our country. Americans of faith are the soul of our country. They're the soul of our country. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. I really do. It's crazy. I've got to have something a little bit different up there, but I do, because I'm being indicted for you. And never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom, because I will never let them take away your freedom, and I'm never going to let it happen. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. I just happen to be standing in the way. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Not the easiest thing I've ever done. Building buildings was much easier. Remember, every communist regime throughout history has tried to stamp out the churches, just like every fascist regime has tried to co-opt them and control them. And in America, the radical left is trying to do both at the same time. There's never been anything like this. It's really dangerous, okay? It's really a bad thing. And you're going to leave this room, and some will say, oh, I think it's an over-exaggeration, and some will say it's actually maybe not even up to what it should be as a statement. It's very dangerous out there. They're doing bad things. They want to tear down crosses where they can and cover them up with social justice flags, which nobody even knows what it means. Nobody knows. They don't know what it means. They want to take off the name George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson off schools and off monuments. Think of it. They take down statues like it's the most magnificent statues anyone's ever seen. And they knock them down like they were garbage. And so bad. But I see where the other day they wanted to take the name George Washington off a school. George Washington. When you lose George Washington, you've just about to hit the bottom. That means everything comes off the names of buildings. Even the name Trump is going to be off the buildings. There won't be a Trump up there, I can guarantee you that. If Washington can't make it and Lincoln can't make it, I'm going to have a big problem having my name on buildings. But no one will be touching the cross of Christ under the Trump administration. I swear to you, that will never happen. Never happen. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're not going to let that happen. When I return to the White House, I will once again aggressively defend religious liberty, just like I had for 4 years. You had no problems. But we're going to defend it in all of its forms. We will protect Christians in our schools, in our military, in our government, and in all of those airwaves that your people, that you Hewitt and Sebastian Gorka and all of the rest of you, I see a lot of you out there that you do such a great job in talking about in your broadcasts, and in Salem, what the job you do is great. I'm telling you, Salem has really done a fantastic job. I just want to thank you. You have courage. You have really courage, because I know it's not easy. Congratulations. And we will protect God in our public square, which they don't want us to do. I will never allow the big media or left-wing pressure groups to silence you, censor you, discriminate against you, or in any way tell you what you have to say. They want you to say what they want to have you say, and we're not going to let that happen. You're going to say as you want, and you're going to believe, and you're going to believe in God. You're going to believe in God because God is here and God is watching. God is watching. And God probably can't believe what he's seeing. I think he's having a hard time with this one. He's trying to figure, well, maybe he isn't, but everyone else is, I can tell you. He probably understands it very well, better than anybody. There's enough filth on our airwaves. American families need a haven where our children can be taught our values, not have radical values forced upon them, the families and the children. We don't want that. Our children hear enough about pronouns. What is with pronouns? If you really study it and look at it, it's sick. It's sick. I will protect the content that is pro-God. We're going to protect pro-God context and content. To that end, at the request of the NRB, I will do my part to protect AM radio in our cars. You know, we like to listen to AM radio because you know what we're listening to. Millions of Americans value listening to Christian broadcasters, and you're under siege. I know what you're going through. And this happened. This is a phenomenon that's just really happened. While they're on the road, we support you, and we are supporting all of those believers and the people that believe in you. We're not going to abandon you, and we're not going to abandon those great people that do these incredible broadcasts. They're incredible people. They're brave people. They shouldn't have to be brave people. They're smart people. They shouldn't have to be brave people. There should be nothing brave about it, but they're brave people because of this crazy government that we're developing more and more. It's a fascist government. The Biden administration wants to do major harm to you. You cannot let people vote for these people. You cannot let people vote for the Democrats. They're really wanting to change our whole system of values. Upon taking office, I will create a new federal task force on fighting anti-Christian bias. It's become a very big term, anti-Christian bias. Not believable that you have a term like that, is it? When you think about it, it's like, where did that come from? And it's a very recent phenomenon. Its mission will be to investigate all forms of illegal discrimination, harassment, and persecution against Christians in America. As president, I will once again appoint rock-solid conservative judges in the mold of Justices Antonin Scalia and the great Clarence Thomas, who's doing a phenomenal job. Strong. I will stand proudly with our friend and ally, the State of Israel. We will stand proudly with Israel. In our first term, I kept my promise, recognized Israel's eternal capital. That was a big thing. Everybody said, oh, wow. You know, every president, David Friedman, every president for decades was saying during their process of getting elected, during the process, that we will name the capital, we will move to Jerusalem, we'll do all of these things. Never happened. And I understood why, because once I got in, the pressure that was put on me by other countries was extraordinary. And I've told the story when I was going to move our embassy to Jerusalem, therefore becomes the capital of Israel. I was getting calls by leaders of other countries, very powerful leaders, some leaders not so far away from Israel, frankly, and they'd say, what is it about? It's about Jerusalem, it's about the capital. And I said, this is tough. I'm doing it, so there's no reason to go through these long calls. So I said, please tell them I'll call them back. This was a Wednesday. Please tell them I'll call them back on Monday. Okay, so I called back on Monday. So on, I believe, a Thursday or whatever, I announced we had a news conference. It was incredible. I announced that we were doing this. And it was tremendously, you know, don't forget, they said the world was going to come to an end if this happened. Well, nothing happened. Everybody waited. They said this will be the bloodiest thing that's ever happened in history, and nothing happened. And I thought that was probably going to be the result, but nothing happened. But I did it, and Israel, therefore, became the capital. Then it was a big thing. And on Monday, I called back the biggest leaders in the whole world, richest leaders, biggest leaders. I said, hi, what's up? They said, I called about Israel and you're naming the embassy, putting it into Jerusalem, and it's too late, isn't it? I said, yeah, I did. I wish I spoke to you earlier. David was there, right? That was a little easier than getting into arguments. I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. That was a big one. That was a big one. Probably, not that we did it for dollars, but probably worth trillions of dollars. As a real estate professional, I will tell you that was a big deal. And you know, there were negotiating that out for 62 years. Every year planes would fly in, fly out, fly in, fly out. They'd have a meeting every year for many, many years, like over 60 years, I think. I called David Friedman into my office. I said, David, explain the Golan Heights to me, please, in 5 minutes or less. Now, this has been going on for 68 years or something. The planes would come in, they'd have these big summits, they'd leave, nothing would happen. And he did. He explained it in less than 5 minutes. And I said, let's do it. And I just did it. And it's a big deal. But the biggest thing I did, in my opinion, the biggest thing was I withdrew from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal that Israel never wanted. Now, the problem is that the Biden administration did nothing. We could have made any deal we wanted. That deal was done. Iran was broke, totally broke. They had no money because I said anybody buying oil from Iran is not doing any business in the United States, right? And China stopped. They all stopped. They were doing no business. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for anything. They were totally broke. And we could have made any deal we wanted. No more nuclear weapons. You cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. And we were all set to do it. When the election ended, and you know the result, it'll go down as a tragedy in our country, in my opinion. One of the great tragedies that everyone knows it was all rigged and screwed up. A horrible thing happened. Anytime you have mail-in voting, too, you're going to have a crooked election. Remember that. Mail-in voting. Even Jimmy Carter, with his commission, said you can't have mail-in voting. France gave it up. You know, France had an election recently, 36 million votes. Paper ballots, same-day voting, voter ID, very simple. The election ended. You had a winner, you had a loser. And but any time you have mail-in voting, you're going to have problems. Most countries, many countries have just given it up. It can't possibly work. But with the historic Abraham Accords, we did the Abraham Accords. It's one of the greatest things ever done for peace in the Middle East. But the Biden administration didn't take advantage of it, and they didn't take advantage of the weakness at that time of Iran. So when I got out, Iran went about selling oil at levels they've never hit before. China went back to buying. India went back to buying. France went. They all went back to buying. Everybody was buying. And now Iran has $235 billion. They made it over the last 3 years. $235 billion. Iran is a very rich country right now. And what a shame. It was a great time. We could have negotiated any deal. We don't want to hurt anybody, but we just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon, because when they have a nuclear weapon, very bad things are going to happen. And they're very close to having that now. That would have been, had the election not been rigged, we would have had a deal with Iran within 1 week after that election. 1 week, they were dying to make a deal because they were hurting. And it would have been a great deal for the world. It would have been a good deal for them. I want everybody to be happy. They just can't have a nuclear weapon. So it was one of those things. But the other is that, again, Ukraine wouldn't have been. I just looked at some reports that just came out on Ukraine. The death there and destruction is just unbelievable. And Israel would have never been attacked. All of these things, none of them would have happened. And you wouldn't have had inflation, because it was caused by the price of oil. It was caused by the price of energy. And everything went up and is out of control. Now everything is hurting. Everything is hurting. And by the way, the numbers on inflation are so massive over a 3-year period. I think the real number is probably 38%, that no matter how much you made, you're losing a lot of money. You're way behind the 8 ball. I also cut off funding for the United Nations organizations that were funneling billions of taxpayer dollars to Hamas, yet Joe Biden gave it back. Close to $1 billion. He gave them $1 billion back. I also ended, as you remember, Nord Stream 2, the Russian pipeline. And then they say, oh, I like Russia, I'm so friendly. This is the biggest thing they ever did. I ended it. Think of it. The biggest thing, the biggest deal, the most profitable deal, the greatest deal they've ever done, I ended it. It was dead. And Biden came in and he approved it right away. But he killed the Keystone pipeline. He killed our pipeline. He let Russia build their pipeline to Germany and all over Europe. And then they say, well, Trump was very friendly with Putin. Putin said, man, if you're a friend, I'd hate like hell to see you as an enemy. I'd like to ask a man who's with us tonight, and he's been with me the entire way, Ambassador David Friedman, just come up and say a few words and give us a little of that wisdom, please. Thank you.
This brings back great memories, really great memories. Mr. President, I just want to say a couple of things that I think everybody here thinks is obvious, but we need to say it anyway. The first, you were the greatest friend that Israel ever had in the Oval Office. By far. By far. The second thing is that the tragedy that is now befalling the state of Israel, and it breaks my heart, and I work on this every day, and I go back and forth. I'm wearing this is to commemorate the hostages, still 130 hostages that are being held in the worst conditions. As you said, this wouldn't have happened had we still been in power, had you still been in power, had I still been working for you, for obvious reasons, because the money that now Iran is using to sell oil, the money that you cut off to the Palestinians that they now have, the money you cut off to the United Nations that they still have, all of this was the lubricant that enabled Hamas to conduct their horrible attacks, and Hezbollah too. It took a lot of money. You cut it all off, and President Biden brought it all back. And so we really wish you never left office, because we're feeling the pain right now because of that. And the last thing I'll just say is, when you moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and we were there together in the Situation Room, and you got pushback from other countries, but you also got pushback from some of your own people. And I was there with you, and I remember what you said. You said, I promised I'm going to do this, and this is the right thing. And the signal that you sent to the world, not just to those people in that room, but to the whole world, is that the United States will stand with its allies, and the United States will not flinch from the threats of rogue nations. And that message, as much as it elated me and it elated everybody else in this room, that message resonated. It resonated in North Korea, and it resonated in Iran, it resonated in Russia. And when the history books are written, I believe that is one of the reasons why under your administration there were no new wars. We owe you a great gratitude that we cannot repay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. You did a great job. During the debate, Hillary Clinton said, he will lead us into war. He will lead. Look at the attitude. Look at this guy. He's going to lead us into war. I said, no, my attitude will keep us out of war. We defeated ISIS 100% and then pulled everyone out. And we were, I guess they say, the first one in 72 years or something like that. I'll tell you just a quick story about Jerusalem. So a friend of mine, a very rich guy in New York, has a beautiful office in a big building. And across from the elevator, he has beautiful stone. And every time I see him, he tells me about the stone, how beautiful it is. I get tired of it, actually. Look how beautiful. And he goes, it's Jerusalem stone. Jerusalem comes out of Jerusalem. He's Jewish. It comes out of Jerusalem. Look at it. It's so beautiful, isn't it? I said, yeah, for the 12th time. I said, yeah, it's beautiful. Big deal. So what happened is when I approved the deal, and now we're all set with the deal was done. It was done, and it went. Nobody was fighting, and there was no bloodshed, no nothing. But I said, let's build the embassy, because this embassy will never get built the way government works. So a general came in with a $2 billion form for me to sign. That was what they were going to build on. They were going to spend $2 billion to build an embassy. $2 billion to build. I think of it as a 1- or 2-story building. How do you do that? I'm in the real estate business. You don't spend that kind of money. But they were going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a lousy site, bad location. We like good locations. And I said, David, go check it out, because they want me to sign. I told the general I didn't want to sign $2 billion. I didn't want to be foolish. And I said, go see if we have any buildings. You know, the United States has been around a long time. Usually we have the best site, or you could look at the post office site in Washington, D.C. Always get a post office because that's always the first thing the federal government, they always have the best location. But I said, see if we have a good site in our inventory of sites. And lo and behold, 2 days later, David Friedman calls me back. He said, sir, we have a great site. It's much better than the site that we're talking about, and we own it. I said, does it have a building on it? Yeah, it does. And it's set back. You know, there are certain rules. They want it set back, I guess, for obvious reasons, called explosions on a sidewalk. The building is set back. It's up high. It has beautiful views. Everything is perfect. And we could probably use the frame, use the structure, save a lot of money and a lot of time. So this new building would have probably never been built. It would be built for years and years, decades probably. It would have spent billions of dollars, and they would have had nothing. I said, let's get it built. So he comes back, he sends me some pictures. I say, listen, go out and let's see what we can do. And you have to do me a favor. You're in Jerusalem. See if you can make a good deal on Jerusalem stone. Because a friend of mine tells me it's so expensive and so impossible to get. So David calls me back about 5 days later. He said, sir, I think we can do the building. I said, how much, David? About $490,000. I said, you got to be kidding. I said, does that include Jerusalem stone? He said, the whole place is Jerusalem stone. We have so much Jerusalem stone in Jerusalem, we could get it cheaper than brick. So, right? It's a beautiful building. I don't think they ever have to do anything with it. I think it's beautiful. They'll probably someday knock it down and spend $3 billion to build a building that's terrible, but it's a beautiful building. So we not only named the site and did the capital of Israel and all of those things that all other presidents failed, many, many presidents, they all campaigned on it and then they never had the guts. I now realize why, though, because of the pressure from other countries. But we got it built, and we got it built in about 5 months. And it opened, and it's a great fanfare, and it's such a beautiful building. It really is, and it's just about all in Jerusalem stone. They even sent me a piece of Jerusalem stone with a dedication, which I proudly have in my office. But under my leadership, we will restore peace through strength before I even arrive at the Oval Office. Shortly after it's going to be we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. We'll have it totally settled. We're going to get it settled. We're going to get it settled. People are dying. Too many people are dying. You saw that evening when I was interviewed on CNN 6-7 months ago by a person that didn't like me particularly. I thought they were doing it because they wanted to come a little bit more to the center and try and get some ratings because they're dying in the ratings. Whoops, there goes CNN. There goes the light. The red light just went off. I wonder what that means. I wonder what that means. But we all know what that means, so we all know what that means. But it was a war. All of these wars would have never happened. None of it would have happened. If I was president, none of it would have happened. As the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers, right? Blessed are the peacemakers. And I promise, I will be your peacemaker in more ways than what you think. I will be your peacemaker, and I will be the only president that will be able to say this, and say it with great conviction. I will prevent World War III. We're very close to World War III, and this will be a war like no other. They went to Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who's the Prime Minister of Hungary. He's a very tough man. He's a strong man. He's a friend of mine, a strong man. I actually endorsed him. Can you believe it? I said, why do you need an endorsement? You're a very popular guy. He said, I'd like to have it anyway. And he won by a record astounding number. He's a great guy. He's a strong guy, loves his country. And they were interviewing him a few weeks ago, and they asked him, what's going on with the world? What are we doing? Everything's blowing up. The Middle East. You look at Israel and you look at Ukraine and you look at possibly China and the threats from North Korea. Everything is a disaster. What do we do? He said it's a very simple thing. Elect Donald Trump president of the United States and it's all going to go away. He was the only person that people listened to. He said it actually stronger than that, but I don't want to say it. He said everybody was afraid of Trump. I don't know if they were afraid or not. I don't care if they were afraid or not, but we wouldn't be having any of these things that are happening right now. None of them. Millions of people would be alive if you added all up. Both sides. I'm talking about both sides. People are from both sides, not just from our side. Millions of people would be alive right now if everything happened differently on that horrible election period. We no longer have election day. We used to have election day. Now we have election period. Some of them last for 45 days. And what they do during those 45 days is very bad. A lot of bad things happen. I will stop the disaster known as Bidenomics, and we will return to Maganomics, putting America first at all times. We will stop Biden's inflation nightmare. I will cut your taxes and regulations, and we will drill, baby, drill. We have more than anybody, remember that, more than anybody. Liquid gold, I call it. On day one, I will seal the border and stop the invasion of our country. It's an invasion, just like a military invasion. 3 years ago, we had the most secure border in U.S. history, and now we have the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been a border so bad as this or so dangerous. As soon as I take the oath of office, I will terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, because we have no choice. We have no choice. I will also use Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families in their home countries, starting immediately. We will bring back law and order in our country. I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every radical, out-of-control prosecutor in America for their illegal, racist, in reverse enforcement of the law. What they're doing is so illegal. I am also going to indemnify all police and police officers, all law enforcement officials throughout the United States, to protect them from being destroyed by the radical left who are taking strong actions on crime. They want to take their pensions, they want to take their job, they want to take their family, they want to destroy their lives because they want to protect us. And we're going to indemnify those people. We're going to indemnify the law enforcement officers that can clean up and straighten out all of the crime that's going on. We have crime at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Our inner cities are a disaster. We're going to rebuild our cities into beacons of hope, safety, and beauty, better than they've ever been before. We'll work with Democrats. They're all run by the Democrats, all of these horrible places that have become so horrible, once beautiful, but have become so unsafe. And we will take over the terribly run capital of our nation in Washington, D.C., and clean it up, renovate it, and rebuild our capital city so that it no longer is a nightmare of murder and crime, but rather it will become the most beautiful capital anywhere in the world. We're going to make it the most beautiful capital anywhere in the world. It once probably was, but we will make it definitely. But we're going to clean up the crime. People go from Tennessee to Washington, D.C., and they end up getting killed. They end up getting shot, mugged. Terrible things happen, and can't be that way. Can you imagine foreign leaders coming in from other lands? They hear all about Washington, the United States, and they're driving in dirty roads, potholes all over the place, medians that are falling down into the road, and crime and graffiti all over those beautiful marble columns, swastikas. Can you imagine what they must think about our country? And I worked hard on that. You know, anytime I drive, when I saw like one or two tents starting to form, I said, go out there immediately and take down those tents, because it was easy when you have 2 or 3 or 4. But now you take a look at what's happened. It looks like Tent City. Some of our most beautiful parks. What they've done to our country is not believable. It's so sad to see. Another top priority will be to take back our education system from the communists and the freaks that are destroying it. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children. Thank you. I will support a policy of universal school choice, allowing parents to choose the public, private, charter, or religious school that best suits their children. And I will support America's homeschool families, including allowing 529 education savings accounts to be used for homeschooling expenses up to $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free. So you can do that if you like it. And to me, very importantly, I will close the Federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the states where it belongs and where they can individualize education and do it with love of parents, love of everybody, but most importantly, the love and respect of their student. Move it back. You know, we're last on every list. We're first on the list of the cost of education per student. We spend more per student by far than any other country. But we're last in terms of results. The results are horrible. We're going to move it back to the states. I mean, I know states that will do a phenomenal job. Most of them, some I don't think will do really that good of a job. Usually if they're run badly, the school's not going to be so great. But many of these states will bring back world-class education in terms of schooling, and they're going to do that. We're going to move it back. We're going to get it out of Washington. We're going to move it back. We're going to end the so-called Department of Education. We might have one desk, one person, just to make sure everyone's speaking English. Got to have a little bit of regulation, you know. Let's try and keep it so that you can only, that we're going to focus on some English. But after that, you can go ahead and do what you're going to do, but you can't do worse. You know, we're at the bottom of every list. Every single list, we're at the bottom, and yet we spend more per pupil, so we're going to move it back to the states. I will also take historic action to defeat the toxic poison of gender ideology and restore the timeless truth that God created two genders, male and female. So crazy. And something that I am always amazed that I have to say, I will keep men out of women's sports. Can you imagine? And I will sign a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. No more, no more. What they're doing is crazy. These are some of the things that we must do, but things that are very important to this particular audience. We have to do a lot of other things, but this particular audience wants to know how we feel about that. For those of you who live in Tennessee, I love this state. You know, we won this state by numbers that nobody's ever won. I love Tennessee. The primary is Tuesday, March 5th, less than 2 weeks from now, so get out there and vote. And I have a feeling you're going to vote for a guy named Trump, I think. So get out there and vote. And it's important to do it, not that we have a race, because we really essentially don't have a race. Nikki is not a race. But we have to send a message to these radical left lunatics that on November 5th, we're coming. We're coming in numbers that they've never seen before. Because when the numbers are that way, and I think they have a chance of being that way, you can only cheat so much. You can only cheat so much. So we have to really we have to let the world know that we're coming. We're going to come in big numbers, and on November 5th, we're going to get rid of a man who is the worst president in the history of our country, I think by far. So get out and vote on the 5th. You got to get out and vote. Very, very near. Get out and send that message. But the big one is in November, but you got to send the message right now. So even though it's not much of a election per se, you got to get out there and you have to send that big, beautiful message that we're coming. For generations, America's religious broadcasters have helped the people of this country live up to the words of our glorious motto, "In God we trust." We will never change that motto. You know, there are many, many people that want to change that model. That model will never change. That motto will that motto will never change. It's a magnificent motto, and we've had it, and we're not going to let people talk about that. Will never change. This great organization has helped spread the Word of God, the love of Christ, the stories of the Holy Bible, and the voices of famed evangelical people and evangelists like the late, great Pat Robertson, who was a great gentleman. Got to know him very well. Great evangelist. And, of course, Billy Graham. How good was Billy Graham, right? I remember my father took me to Yankee Stadium, and Billy Graham was preaching, and it was amazing. I was very young. My father loved Billy Graham, and that place was packed, bigger than any World Series game, bigger than anything anybody's ever seen, and it was packed. And we would love to bring it back to those days, Jack, right? We'd love to bring it back to those days. Amazing. Our country would greatly benefit by it. Your efforts have inspired millions and millions to live their values and put faith at the center of their lives so importantly. And in turn, these legions of listeners, citizens, soldiers, ministers, and everyday American believers not only help defeat fascism and communism, they help to build America into the greatest nation in the history of the world. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. We are a nation that has lost its confidence, its willpower, and its strength. We are a nation that has lost its way, but we are not going to allow this horror to continue. We can't allow it to continue. 3 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. With your prayers, your voice, and your vote, we will reclaim our government from these horrible tyrants. We will remove the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We will defeat crooked Joe Biden. We will restore faith and family to the center of American life, and we will restore power to the people. Ladies and gentlemen, with your help and God's grace, the great revival of America begins on November 5th, 2024. It's a great revival. So again, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the national religious broadcasters. I cannot state strongly enough what an incredible job you do. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Aloha. It's wonderful to see you all here again at such a critical time. Our democracy is under attack. The perpetrators of this attack are those who, in the name of saving our democracy, are destroying it. I don't use these words lightly. Every one of us who loves this country and who cherishes peace and freedom should be very alarmed by those who, driven by their insatiable hunger for power, are actively undermining all that we stand for. And almost every single day, if you're paying attention to the news and the headlines, there is some new assault and some new attack. Now, it's the Democrat elite and the swamp creatures in Washington who are doing all that they possibly can to keep us, the American people, from a very simple thing, having the freedom to choose who we want to be our next president. And it is clear through their actions they have no respect for us, and they have no respect for our fundamental rights as citizens of this democratic republic. They are so terrified that we, the people, may make what they think is the wrong choice. That in the name of protecting democracy and saving us from ourselves, they're actually destroying our democracy and taking away our freedom. Now, we look throughout history and we can see many examples of evildoers who find some justification, who believe that they are doing the right thing. And so today we see the Democrat elite say with great concern in their voice that if the American people elect Donald Trump again, they warn us he will destroy our democracy. They say he will be the dictator in chief, that if he's elected, it will be the last election this country sees. It's laughable. It is so crazy, it's laughable. But they're justifying their actions by telling themselves that they need to destroy our democracy in order to save it. It's lunacy, and it's the mindset and mentality of dictators. They are waging a multi-front battle, and they will stop at nothing until they're successful. I'm going to go through a few of the many examples. We've seen how Colorado, Maine, 32 states have taken some action or another themselves in an unprecedented way to try to remove the leading Republican candidate for president, Donald J. Trump, from the presidential ballots. In defiance of the Constitution, these people are single-handedly deciding that somehow they alone have the authority to take away our right as citizens to decide who we want to be our president. We see in Congress, a progressive congressman, Ro Khanna from California, someone who I've known for years. He is so desperate to take Trump off the ballot that he's demanding that the chairman of the Federal Reserve, a position that's supposed to be nonpartisan and apolitical, take action and intervene to stop the former president from getting reelected. On December 27th of last year, Representative Khanna said in a post on X that Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, quote, should cut interest rates now, given most of inflation was caused by supply shocks. If he doesn't, he may be the person most responsible for the return of Trump. The Democrat elite and their cronies, they're using our criminal justice system to prosecute and distract the Republican presidential candidate in the midst of his campaign. As we know, Donald Trump currently faces 91 charges in 4 criminal cases, 44 on the federal side, 47 on the state side, all felonies. This most recent ruling in New York, the real estate case, charging him a $355 million fine plus nearly $100 million in interest for a business transaction where there was no victim or complaint, where all parties made money. So egregious that even people who are not fans of Donald Trump are standing up and saying this is crazy and criticizing this judge's decision that from the very beginning has been a very clearly politically motivated hit job. This is the truth. They're hoping and doing all that they can convict Donald Trump of some crime, any crime, to try to undermine his support and therefore prevent what they fear most, a second Trump presidency. And there's a reason why they're so afraid of him, because he poses a threat to this establishment where they draw their power from. When we take a step back and look beyond the personalities, look beyond Donald Trump and Joe Biden, what we're facing is a threat of far greater magnitude. A very dangerous precedent is being set. Our democratic republic is being destroyed by the permanent Washington elite, and there are people in both political parties who truly believe they and not the American people have the right to decide who should be our president. They easily and dangerously dismiss our Constitution, the rule of law, the voices of the American people, anointing themselves as the ones who have the power and justification to make this most important decision. Now, I've only mentioned a few of the many examples. I could write a whole book detailing all that's been done, all that the Democrat elite and Washington establishment have done and are doing to try to destroy Donald Trump and steal our election. As you know very well, President Trump has endured years of attacks. What we're seeing now is a continuation of something that began in 2016, ever since he came down that golden escalator. Now, I've met a lot of strong, tough people in my life. I can't think of a single one who could not only withstand all that they are throwing at Donald Trump without crumbling, but someone who would actually choose to keep fighting against the entire Washington establishment. Now, I've known Joe Biden for a long time. I used to consider him a friend. Do you think he could handle this pressure? I don't think so. I think even a fraction of this pressure and stress and attacks that Trump has endured would cause him to crumble. Now, if you listen to what Nikki Haley has been saying, she claims that President Trump only cares about himself and that he's doing all that he's doing only for himself. If that were the case, wouldn't he just walk away from all this? Walk away from the headaches and the attacks and the stress that he's enduring right now? So why doesn't he? I've had the chance to meet with him and speak with him at length, and I've seen firsthand his heartfelt interactions with friends of mine, veterans, and I've seen how he has touched their hearts and moved them to tears as he expressed his appreciation for their service and their sacrifice. No cameras, no crowds, just that heartfelt conveyance of appreciation. I've gotten a sense for what motivates him, and it's got nothing to do with what the Washington establishment is accusing him of. This is a man who's a fighter. His strength and resilience can only come from one place. His ability to endure this hardship can only come from one place, and that's a sincere love and concern for the future of our country and his care for the American people. But we've got a lot of work to do ahead of us. Now is the time for us to act motivated by our love of country. We've got to take all the outrage and sadness and fear that we may feel, caused by those in power who have no care or respect for the will of the people. Take all of those feelings and let that motivate us to take action, to find strength in knowing that they are doing what they're doing because they're afraid of us. That just like we see foreign dictators are afraid of democracy, the Democratic leaders are so afraid of a free people and a free society, and the possibility that we, the American people, might make the wrong choice in this election by choosing someone other than them. They are doing all they can through the power of law enforcement, the criminal justice system, the national security state, doing all that they can to stop us from exercising our freedom. They forget that we, the people, are the ones with the power. But we have to use that power. We cannot allow them to get away with this. Our democracy is under attack, and it's up to us to save it. We have to hold those responsible accountable at the ballot box. We have to send this strong message to leaders in both parties that those who abuse their power and undermine our democracy and our freedom will not be tolerated. If we do nothing, if we turn a blind eye to those who are weaponizing our criminal justice system against their political opponents and telling us who we are and aren't allowed to vote for, telling us what we are and aren't allowed to say or see or hear, it will set a dangerous precedent for every election and presidency in the future, and its democracy as we know it will be finished. Now, I know we face challenges in our entire political system, and those challenges are not limited to one political party. There are politicians from both parties who are more interested in serving themselves and their own interests than they are about serving the needs of the American people. And they're not going to give up without a fight. On January 27th, 1838, President Lincoln delivered a powerful speech to the Young Men's Lyceum of Springfield, Illinois. And he said, quote, "At what point then is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reach us, it must spring up amongst us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide." The choice before us is clear. Freedom isn't free. We can't lose sight of what we can accomplish when we, the people, stand together on the foundational principles that this country was built on. A free people with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We must protect free speech of all Americans. We must stand against those who'd rather censor, cancel, and smear rather than engage in honest debate as our founding fathers did. When the free speech of one person is threatened, even when that speech is reprehensible to us, the free speech of all people is threatened. Same goes for freedom of religion. In our America, freedom of religion does not mean freedom from religion. Real religion is love for God. It's not attached to any one religious sect or label or another. Our government must respect our freedom to worship and express our faith, express our love for God as we choose. Or, for those who choose not to, they have that right as well. Our founders intentionally passed the Second Amendment right after the First because they knew how fragile this new free democracy was and how susceptible it would be, and it still is, to those who abuse their power to try to take away our freedom. So we have to defend our right to bear arms, not only to defend ourselves and our loved ones, but to serve as that important check on the abuse of power by an increasingly tyrannical government. We must stop the bipartisan warmongers of Washington who constantly beat their war drums, who have pushed us to the precipice of World War III and a nuclear catastrophe. Now, President Eisenhower warned us clearly in his farewell address about these people, those in Washington who bend the knee to their bosses in the military-industrial complex and then shrug their shoulders and look the other way at the costly, damaging, and potentially catastrophic consequences of their decisions, the cost that every one of us pays. We need leaders who are committed to peace, strength, and prosperity, because we cannot be truly prosperous as a nation unless we are at peace. Unfortunately, war is sometimes necessary to defeat those who threaten the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. And as a soldier serving now for almost 21 years in our military and still serves today, I know this firsthand. But I also know that war must always be a last resort after all other avenues have been exhausted. We need leaders who are committed to upholding the rule of law, who are committed to keeping our communities safe and securing our borders. In our America, we must come together inspired by love. Love for God, love for others, love for our country. Because we live in the greatest country in the world. It's filled with potential for us to stand together and build a brighter future in a more perfect union where every American can live free, in peace, and with opportunity for prosperity. To make this future a reality, we must not only come together in spaces like this with our brothers and sisters who agree with us, we also have to reach out to those who we may not agree with on every issue, but who love this country as we do and who are just as frustrated with those abusing their power as we are. Whether they're Democrat, Republican, Independent, or Libertarian, we must stand together as fellow Americans who cherish peace and freedom, cherishing our commitment to save our country and defend our republic. Those in power in America today are leading this great nation toward the suicide Abraham Lincoln warned of. If we do not act now, we will look back at this very moment with regret, but we won't be able to say that we had no warning. By God's grace, we are free and we will remain free. God bless you all. God bless America. Let's go and save our country. Thank you so much, everybody. Aloha. Thank you.
Former President Trump isn't backing down from a $350 million civil fraud verdict against him. But New York's Attorney General Letitia James says that she's ready to seize his buildings if he can't pay. Lydia Hu is outside Trump Tower in New York City with the details. Lydia.
Hi there, Emily. New York Attorney General Letitia James' promise means that massive buildings like Trump Tower that you see just behind me could be the targets of seizures by the New York Attorney General's office. Watch here.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
But Trump's legal team says they will appeal, and to prevent the Attorney General from seizing properties, they have only 30 days from the verdict to pay cash for that $355 million fine into an escrow account or post an appeal bond. Now, last night, the former president spoke with Laura Ingraham, and he said he would not be able to tell us whether he would have to sell one of his prized properties to cover these costs. Listen to Trump's comments about the judgment and New York Judge Arthur Engoron, who ruled against him.
Well, I have a lot of cash, but that doesn't mean he can take it. I mean, you know what he did? I think he looked at my cash and he said, well, we'll take all of his cash.
And Emily, I had the chance to speak to bond companies today who tell me if the former president were to pursue obtaining an appeal bond, they would likely ask him to offer the full amount of the judgment or very close to it to secure it. So no matter his avenue, it seems like he's on the hook for coming up with more than $400 million in the short term. Emily.
Lydia, thank you so much. That's right. It tops $460 million when you include interest. Meanwhile, former President Trump gave a preview of what his administration could look like, revealing his shortlist for vice president during last night's Fox News town hall. Watch.
The first quality has to be somebody that you think will be a good president, because if something should happen, you have to have somebody that's going to be a great president. A lot of people are talking about that gentleman right over there. And he's been so great. He's been such a great advocate. I have to say, this is in a very positive way, Tim Scott. He has been much better for me than he was for himself.
So someone who can step into the role.
Most importantly, you have to view that.
The audience has been asked who they think would be a good choice, and various names came up. One of them was, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. He's made a big splash. Ron DeSantis, who's making an appearance today in South Carolina, we just found out. Obviously, Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, and a big presence here for Tulsi Gabbard. Very interesting. And Kristi Noem as well, I should say. Right. Are they all on your short list? And when can we expect that you will announce your choice?
And honestly, all of those people are good. They're all good. They're all solid. And I always say I want people with common sense, because there's so many things happening in this country that don't make sense. Who wants an open border? Who wants high interest rates? Who wants all electric vehicles? And they're fine.
I love that, David Webb. While the Democrats are obsessed with strategy and checking boxes, he just wants someone with common sense, he says.
Yeah, and something important that he said in the very beginning of this, which is that we need somebody ready to step in. Mm-hmm. You know, vice presidents have always been that backstop to a tragedy, and we've seen that throughout our history. Anything is possible. And I think it's important that we see that common sense, capability. You need the ability to put a team together and to work with the existing team. And I think most people can recognize that in our daily lives, in our business lives, you have a structure within a company. You need to run the country like a business as well.
And interestingly, Kaylee, you've talked about that the former president is a master of media and of marketing. So is he sort of calling out the time as we all talk about the short list, we have our Vegas odds, or do you feel indeed that he is assessing and weighing each candidate that he mentioned equally?
I think he would be very smart to drag this out as long as he possibly can. Right before the convention, then pull out the name. He gets an earned media cycle, free media, every time he mentions a short list, every time he mentions a name. it's covered widely. And there are a lot of good names. You know, there were names, Laura listed a bunch of fantastic names. Others, Sarah Sanders, Elise Stefanik, that have been floated out there as good, solid conservative candidates. I was fascinated, though, that last night he mentioned Senator Tim Scott because he mentioned Senator Tim Scott on our network with Maria Bartiromo about a week ago. So I think this is someone under serious consideration. On a short list of who can win over independents, Senator Tim Scott stands out. I had him on Hannity with me Monday night, and I said to him, hey, I'm not going to ask you if you'll take the VP slot, but I am going to ask you if you would relish the chance to debate Kamala Harris. And he said, yes, but I'd like to do it in Eagle Pass, Texas, where he just was. Yeah. He'd like to debate the border czar. Fantastic pick if he is the pick.
Also, if I may interject, really smart going into South Carolina 3 days away to play to it. I mean, Trump's playing smart politics and messaging here because 60 to 35 or whatever the real number is over Nikki Haley, when you bring that support to the table, you want to crush your opponent in the balloting.
And Harris, that was going to be my question, which is, you know, who isn't in that list is Nikki Haley. And many have argued that her ship has sailed and really is past the point of no return, they feel, to ever be considered, despite what Tim Scott said the other day on Hannity to you, which was, we'd welcome her as part of our team, that she will never be welcomed back into the fold.
I think in the last 24 hours, they both have said that, Trump and Nikki Haley, that, you know, maybe not the word ship has sailed, but she doesn't want the second seat. And we'll see what happens with that. Politics are a blood sport. So we don't really know what people need and what they'll pull on. Tim Scott's interesting, though, because the last rally that Trump had in New Hampshire, and remember, people voted 90 minutes later because they started at midnight. And the voice that you saw so much on that stage was Senator Tim Scott. He was kind of the warm-up to the president coming out, and then he came filtered back in. And then we saw after he won South Carolina the I love you line from Tim Scott. They clearly have a friendship. They clearly have some sort of connection, and he clearly is from South Carolina, Tim Scott. So the timing on it is auspicious. It's also a place where Joe Biden needs the black vote, and he clearly is from South Carolina. And people love him there. So let's see what happens with it. But I think he's strong in the running. And I know we showed the big wall. There are other people we didn't even mention. Byron Donalds has been very strong with Trump as well. Right.
And speaking of Joe Biden, Tim, we wanted to get this in, which was Trump being asked by Laura about whether or not he would debate President Biden. Let's take a listen to his answer.
But back to Biden and his current state, whatever you want to call it. Will you challenge him to regular debates?
I'll do it right now on your show. I'll challenge him right now, and we can do you can do anybody you want.
How many debates would you commit to?
As many as necessary. I would like to do it starting now. I don't think he's going to debate, though. I really don't think so.
Yeah, you know, the American people have to see that, right? This shouldn't even really be a question. Because we've got two men. We've got to see Biden, if he can actually deliver in some fashion to give people an excuse to be able to vote for him. And it's been a while since people have seen. He didn't participate in the debates during the primary season, Trump. So people need to see him. It's been several years. The world has changed dramatically. So we want to see him, you know, solidify where he stands on those issues. And he will do it. And just the nature of the manner of the enthusiasm, the energy, the grasp on the issues. That's why it needs to happen. Joe Biden will likely not do it, and I think that is also going to be the biggest statement, a negative one, that he could ever make.
That's right. If they did, could you really imagine that debate? I mean, hashtag TKO.
I'm hoping.
TKO. Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
Thank you. So I thought it would be fun to go on a manhunt of government gangsters together. And I'm so proud to be at CPAC with so many great Americans who represent Donald Trump's army to take this country back. And that's what it's going to take, an entire army. And we all have a job to do. We have the benefit. We're blessed by God to have Donald Trump be our juggernaut of justice, to be our leader, to be our continued warrior in the arena. But we have to fill that arena with Americans behind him who are going to take the fight to the mainstream media, who are going to take the fight to the corporate bureaucracy that controls the swamp, who are going to take the fight to the national defense industry that has monopolized war and sent our sons and daughters to die for other people's fights. We are going to put an end to that behind Donald Trump, and we are going to do it together. What I want to talk about is you guys have been so kind to make Government Gangsters, my book, a bestseller. I thought there would be no better place than to announce what you just saw, which is a joint venture with Steve Bannon and War Room Entertainment to launch conservative films back into the ecosystem. So Government Gangsters, the movie, is the first one, and it's coming out in the spring, just in a couple of months here. So we're very excited about that. But here's the thing. 8 years ago, the deep state was real. When Donald Trump came down the escalator in 2015 in Trump Tower, the deep state was already moving at 100 miles an hour. But they, the deep state, projected on us that we were the neocons, we were the conspiracy theorists because we dared to call them the deep state. And when we fast forward 8 years later, they have multiplied. They have put their army on the ground in government agencies and departments from the DOD to the FBI to the DOJ. They have weaponized justice. They have politicized the intelligence community. They have seized our Department of Defense from the men and women who have the audacity to serve and wear the cloth of this country, and they have tarnished their reputations. And they have led to disasters in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, in Israel, and elsewhere. But they blame us. And one of the main themes about Government Gangsters is we cannot take their bait. We cannot take the overcorrection approach that they want to government. What we must do is identify the people in government that are crippling our constitutional republic. What does that mean? First, we have to identify them. It's not a Republican or Democratic thing. The people that started Russiagate are back in power now. If you think, and the following took me 2 years to prove with Devin Nunes in the House Intel Committee, that a political party in the United States of America could go overseas and buy fake intelligence and hijack the FBI and go to a federal secret court and lie to a judge just to surveil their political opponent. That's conspiracy stuff. But that's what happened in our United States of America to our president the first go-round. What do you think these people are doing now? And there's no coincidences in government. Let me give you an example of the news that's been back in play thanks to great reporting out there about the details of how vast Russiagate was, how the intelligence communities were using operatives overseas. None of that happens by accident. When you go to England and a place like that and you say, you, the FBI, you, the intelligence community, go out there and surveil illegally Donald Trump associates, someone's got to authorize that. Now we know it was John Brennan and Obama who came in with the directive, but who issued the order on the ground to allow that to happen under the law? Gina Haspel, London station chief in 2016, who would later go on to be Trump's CIA director. She's the one who singularly blocked the report that you guys are now all familiar with about John Brennan's corrupt ICA. That report still sits in a SCIF at the CIA under lock and key because she blocked Donald Trump's release of that report so you guys could see the corruption of their ways. The fight's not over. The coincidence don't stop there. Chris Wray, Rod Rosenstein ran the Russiagate cover-up operation, signed the illegal FISA warrants to surveil Donald Trump while he was president of the United States, to rob us of our single greatest benefit in this country, our freedom to vote. Do you know where Gina Haspel and Rod Rosenstein work today? Gina Haspel is a national security advisor to Chris Wray's law firm, where Rod Rosenstein is a named partner with Sally Yates. Since they left the Trump administration, do you think it's a coincidence that the architects of Russiagate, the greatest conspiracy ever perpetrated against the American people, are all making tens of millions of dollars together at a white shoe law firm in the United States of America? Good, identify the problem. It goes beyond Brennan, it goes beyond Clapper, it goes beyond Esper, it goes beyond Barr, it goes beyond so many people you've heard about from the Trump administration. And the only way we are ever going to break that logjam is if we don't accept their projection. They, the radical left, have told us we are the ones who hijack law enforcement agencies. Are we the ones that sent law enforcement into houses of worship? That was them. Are we the ones that told parents that you will be dictated the agenda for your children's education? That was them. But they did it in the name of America, And apparently, since they have the mainstream media, they're getting away with it. And here's the kicker about the media. They serve an invaluable purpose in our constitutional republic until they fail us, which a large portion of them have. And there is no deep state, there are no government gangsters without some of their corrupt actors in the media who continue to print the lies about Donald Trump's success, about our movement, and about our America First mission. And so what I started the conversation with is, it's up to us. We've got the greatest leader we could have ever asked for, but he's going to need some help from us. And so what do we do? What do you do in the next 240 some odd days till the next election? You pick one thing. You pick one thing, whether it's healthcare, education, sheriffs, law enforcement, countering drugs, narcotics, weapons, what have you, ending the forever wars, veterans affairs. You pick one thing and you go out in your communities and you do it 245 times. And you will see that message resonate, because Americans across this country are tired of the swamp. And the swamp only exists because Washington, D.C. has perpetuated itself to overcome the will of the constitutional republic that is the United States of America. And we have to end that. And we cannot end that unless we do the following: embark on a mission to educate Americans across the country. Now is not the I told you so moment. Now is not the time to go to America and say, we were right about Russiagate, we were right about Jan 6, we were right about the 51 Intel letter, we were right about Joe Biden's classified documents case, we were right about President Trump's classified documents case and the two-tier system of justice. We were right because we dared to put the truth out. We were right because we were fighting for this country and our future generation with facts. And that's what we have to arm the American people with every single day. And there isn't anyone in this room or watching that can't effectuate that change with the amount of great social media platforms and media that we have here, like Real America's Voice and everybody else that's willing to take that fight out there. It's imperative that you join the mission. We will follow Donald Trump's tremendous leadership, but we are going to need every one of you times 100 across this scary country to make sure our message is received. Because here's the thing. 2016 is when Russiagate happened. We're in 2024. There's like 40% of this country that still think Donald Trump's a Russian asset because they believe the lies of the mainstream media. And who in the media is again starting to circulate that lie that somehow Donald Trump is still a Russian asset, when we now know definitively the Russians preferred Hillary Clinton to win that 2016 election? How is that truth still buried? Because people like Hillary Clinton go back out there into the media and inject their fake narrative to try to seize you of your right to vote. So the main thing I'm here to talk to you about today is we have to join together in whatever way you want, in whatever mission set you desire is most important to you, and do the following. Put the mission first. That is the single most important thing that we can do to help Donald Trump on his mission that he is on to help rescue our country. And when we wake up in November, it is not going to be just hope that pushes us across the finish line. We are going to look back together and say, we helped destroy the two-tier system of justice that is targeting Americans illegally. We helped destroy and identify an intelligence community that has gone rogue to seize our right to vote with their lies and fake disinformation campaigns. And we collectively joined forces to take on the most powerful enemy that the United States has ever seen. And no, it's not Washington, D.C., it's the mainstream media. And these people out there in the fake news. That is our mission. I will be with you on the road every single day, following Donald Trump's great leadership. But if you want the following to occur, then we got to go big on Trump. Do you want a secure border? Do you want to end CCP fentanyl? Do you want to stop the forever wars? Do you want to shut down the narco traffickers? Do you want to end human trafficking? Do you want to put our soldiers first and take care of our veterans and make sure our schools are free? Do you want to secure our communities? And do you want a constitutional republic to live in? Or do you want to be dictated to by the lunatics of the mainstream media and the radical left? The choice is yours. I'm going on a government gangsters manhunt. Who's coming with me?
And
And former Hawaii Congresswoman and former presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard joins me now. Tulsi, thanks so much for being with us. I mean, you're not only a former presidential candidate, you're a four-term Congresswoman with military service. But let's talk about this informant who's recently been indicted for lying and giving a false statement. They're using one piece of information provided by this one person to try to take down the whole claim regarding the Bidens and what they did with Burisma.
Yeah, Judge, it's very clear what they're doing. And, you know, if I were Trump, I would say, gosh, this is great because they're revealing their hand that they have no card to play. Really, they are in such a state of desperation, knowing that they can't confront Trump. Biden can't confront Trump on the issues. He can't confront him on, you know, border security. Biden's record is horrible. He can't confront him on economy. Biden's record is horrible. People are still paying more for everyday necessities than they were before. He can't confront him on any of these issues. So as you said earlier, they're resorting to their tired and tried playbook of throwing out the Russia playbook, number one, and number two, spreading propaganda themselves with the very ready help and assistance, as you've just showed, of the mainstream propaganda media, thinking that the American people are stupid and that somehow we will fall for the lies that they're telling us about how after 3 years of open borders with millions of people streaming across our border illegally, now all of a sudden Biden is the tough on border president. He really thinks we're going to fall for this. I think the American people are smarter than this. However, we must remain vigilant and paying attention to recognize their propaganda for what it is, pure lies.
All right. And it's interesting that they're using Smirnov to revive the Russia collusion hoax. And, you know, when you ran for president, didn't something like that happen to you?
Yeah, I was laughing to myself as I was hearing the words they're using, because I've heard them so many times. For me, it actually started the day that I announced my candidacy for president to run in the Democratic primary in 2020, Judge. They were calculated. They were concerned about my challenging them and the problems within the Democratic Party. So the beginning of planting those seeds of suspicion that somehow I had something to do with Russia or Putin. And then, of course, then Secretary Clinton stating very clearly that she thought I was a Russian asset.
Yeah.
The problem with this is that it works, which is why they keep going back to it. I experienced over and over during that campaign, and still to this day, Judge, people believing Hillary Clinton, the Democrat elite's lies, without any basis or evidence, and expressing concern.
All right. Last night, Laura Ingraham interviewed former President Donald Trump and talked about a short list for VP that apparently you were on. And the president commented that there was a big presence for you in South Carolina. So it's just you and me talking now, Tulsi.
It's just us girls.
Just us girls, yeah. Have you had conversations with the former president regarding your possibly being on that list?
I've not had conversations with him about being on the list of people he's considering for being VP. Of course, I'd be honored to be asked to serve in that capacity. But just between us girls, I've taken on Kamala Harris on a debate stage before. I would look forward to doing that again.
Ooh, I'd be in the audience for that. Tulsi Gabbard, we always love having you on. Thanks for joining us.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.